Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. I'm already giggly about the funny I got to show you guys today. I don't have a meme. I have a video that's pretty hysterical. Maybe it's not the nicest thing, but it's funny, so I'm going to show it. Thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different articles that we have on the website. Check out different videos that we have. Make sure that you're that you're subscribing, that you're dropping your email, that you're sharing stuff around, that you're following me across different social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. All my handles are at Black Tea News, with the exception of Twitter. That one's at True Black Tea, and it's black like the color, tea like the drink. If you like what I'm doing here at Black Tea News, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It's $10, $20. If you want to go extra mile, 50, 100. Oh my gosh, that'd be great. Really appreciate it. Everything that I do, as you know, nothing in life is free. We're not Democrats here. Maybe some of you are, but I'm not. We know there are costs associated with things, with the streaming, with equipment, everything that I do. So if you'd like to support, I appreciate that. If you can't or don't want to, I thank you guys for still watching, for sharing and getting the word out about Black Tea News. You are all very much appreciated here. I do want to thank Brighton, Michigan PAC. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, no one cares. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices, and I appreciate the space to have my voice uplifted. Also, please check out different merchandise that we have at the store, like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For shirt. We also have the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racist atrocities on the back. Also have the cool goat hoodies and goat t-shirts on there with Lincoln. We got Washington, Reagan, and Trump on there. So you guys can check that out. I also have those in different colors for, like, I would totally spill something on that and stain it forever. We have it in black, we have it in navy, we have it in red, I think. So go check out the different stuff on the website. And I'm also gonna show you some of this pro-life stuff, like the Roe and Casey aborted. The Life Wins shirts, I'm sure will trigger someone. I saw someone in Jersey pick that up. I was like, God bless you, Godspeed to you. And also the pro-choice men are sus, as in suspect. Because I think they are. So I made the shirts. So I'm sure people out there agree and have had similar experiences to me. Also, make sure that you guys are also checking out different books that I've written. If you go to blacktnews.com and check out the merchandise section, there's a banner with my books on it. I write a lot of fiction books of all sorts of age ranges and different topics and so on. I do have also a nonfiction book that is faith-based, Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And also I'm working on my abortion book, and that will be out very soon. So make sure you guys are keeping up to date with that. Okay, you guys know that I like to start with something humorous today. We're going to be talking about midterms are coming up. Obviously, we're straightforward now, banger kind of season heading out toward November with the elections. We have a lot on the line with the majority in the House, majority in the Senate. If the Democrats get the Senate majority, things are going to go from bad to worse, way worse. There needs to be some kind of tampering down, some kind of check that they really, really need. I'm sure Biden will still try to do a bunch of illegal stuff. Hopefully, he will try to have some kind of turnaround, like Bill Clinton turned around. I know a lot of people like to think of not really liking Bill Clinton, and we don't like Bill Clinton. But a check was very necessary for him, and he governed better when he could not just get his way totally. So I don't know if that will put Biden, like, rein him in a bit or not. But we do need to certainly rein him in because he does a lot of illegal stuff. And then we'll find a way, like they said, oh, we can't, we're not, they said we're not going to force vaccinations. We can't force vaccinations. And what did they do? They used the authority of OSHA to do it, which he got struck down in the courts, at least with the employer side of things. But they pressed their luck. He's pressing his luck again now with the student loan thing, which, by the way, the narratives have been crazy. People, oh, you'll say, and I'm not the only person I heard got this sort of rhetoric from people, and you can say, like, I just don't think we should we should have to pay for someone else's student loan, especially if you didn't go to college. I don't think we should have to pay for someone else's student loan. And someone will say, you're just jealous. And it's like, what? I'm jealous that, what, you're robbing me? That's such a weird thing to say. Such a weird thing to say. But yeah, the narratives around this have been really strange. But anyway, Biden needs a check. So there's a lot on the line. The Democrats are really trying to form some kind of single party empowered entity. And if they can pass certain things, like how they wanted to pass their new Civil Rights Act and change different laws as far as like voting rights and etc., they're going to try to take over a lot of electoral power that should be delegated to the states and is delegated to the states, and try to make a lot of stuff on a federal level, which doesn't make a lot of sense because Obama himself was like, because our system is so diverse that keeps people from cheating. That's what he like said in 2016. So I'm like, so why do the Democrats want to centralize more power to the federal government? Am I saying that they want to cheat? I'm saying they want to rig the race in a way that, win or lose, it's kind of, will in a way that they really can't lose. It'll be very hard for them to lose. But they also want to, at the same time they want to do that, they also want to infect our systems and politicize them to the point where it doesn't matter if they lose, they still win, and can be such good opposition. Like they were great opposition to Trump, and he did not have a single day of rest as president. Someone was always trying to drive a dagger in the man's back and make him look like some kind of Russian spy. So there's just a lot on the line with the different elections in Georgia and in Arizona and other states, the race between Oz and Fetterman. And Fetterman is, you guys know, I wasn't like too fond of Oz in the primary, and I, thought there were other picks that were better, but it is what it is now. And Fetterman he's not even all there. And it seems like he got questioned the other day about dodging Oz. He just ignored them, but Oz doesn't seem like he's going to be a great debater anyway. But to be like concerned or afraid is pretty crazy. But Fetterman is not all there. He was sick. He had a stroke, I believe, and he was off the campaign trail for a while. And some of his speeches are like Joe Biden level, and it would be amazing if Oz lost. The polling was pretty bad before, like 11 points, but the gap has closed and it will continue to close. And given the climate of this politics, you really, really shouldn't lose. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. I want to play this really funny video. Oh my gosh. So Beto O'Rourke, or Robert Beto is his nickname. He does not have monkeypox. I just want to say that, according to the reports that he has reported, I think it was by Reuters. I shared that link that despite what people are saying online, Beto does not have monkeypox, but that doesn't stop the memesters. So someone this video. And they said, oh, you can see the infection breaking out.
Session to go after CRT, to go after trans kids, to go after our election laws, could not be bothered over these last 13 weeks to call a special session to make us safer in our classrooms. Kids across the state are already back in school, and their eyes are on us saying, hey guys.
I'm sorry if you didn't find it as funny as I did, but oh, but it's some kind of bacterial infection. I'm not sure what it is, but he's being treated, and so he's off the campaign trail for a while. And you're probably like, "That's awful! How dare you laugh?" It's reading the comments. Sometimes it's okay because they're so awful. I'm sure if it is monkeypox, he probably got it from a furry. But anyway, they say it's not monkeypox. But I wonder what it is, because there's other. I mean, if you're a politician, you're running, you want to look your best, I guess, when you go out. But it is like kind of crunch time, so you also don't want to not go out there. And there's infections you can get that's where you still, I guess, can go out and function in life. So I don't know how bad it is, but I mean, I guess people suspected, started making the monkeypox jokes because I don't know how serious some people were, like, oh, it's monkeypox. I think a lot of people were just kind of joking about it. It's humorous, I guess, that the fact checkers felt like they needed to write something about it because there was so much speculation going around. But when you are sick enough to need to take off some time from campaigning when you're in crunch time, people are like, that sounds pretty serious. So we don't. I'm going to say he doesn't have monkeypox since the reports are saying that, but I had a good laugh. So first and foremost, I want to talk about this Joe Rogan video that's going around. It's been pretty viral. He's said that people need to vote Republican because of what happened with COVID. Like, they're like, oh, what's the solution? He's like, you got to vote Republican.
No one who is alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican. That's what a lot of them are going to do anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, more than 1 million people transferred over to the Republican Party, I think in 2021 alone. Find out what that number is. But, you look at guys like Ron DeSantis, who kept Florida open and had some pretty reasonable policies in terms of, like, what to do about COVID. And, he mapped it out on television. He was, widely criticized for this, where he was saying, like, we need to protect our elders. We need to, make sure that medical care is available for those people. And everyone else, you should be able to do whatever you want to do and protect your freedom.
So he's right. If you want to send a message that what happened was bad, then there's people who need to be voted out, especially my governor in my state. You guys know I live in Michigan, and I said a line yesterday that she tested the limits of her tyranny or something along those lines, and people are like, oh, that's such a great line. And someone put it in the comments from yesterday if you want to go back and see what that line was. I guess I probably will, so I can keep repeating it. But she was a tyrant. She was tyrannical, and then they'll be like, oh, don't say stuff like that because then the FBI will plot and set up people to kidnap her. And so I don't know, so they could to basically take your power away from saying exactly what she was, a tyrant. Her rules made no sense. That's really the worst thing. You had people violating your freedom for reasons that didn't pan out, reasons that were clearly anti-science. And then you saw people who were like totally hypocritical. People should have said enough is enough when they're like, stay home, stay home. You had nurses and doctors and celebrities, all these people begging people, stay home, stay home, stay home. As soon as COVID happened, you had doctors are like, not COVID, the George Floyd and BLM marches and then riots. People were like, it's too important to stay home. And it's like, I thought people were dying. I thought grandma was dying. I thought we were killing our friends and our neighbors and our everyone. But you're saying this is too important, and if people want to go out and march, they should go out and march. Okay. At that point, people should have been like, folks are hacks. And you can have that opinion that it was too important not to do something, but it's not fair to tell people that it's too important to march for BLM, but it's not you going to see your loved ones on Thanksgiving isn't important enough, or or enjoying 4th of July with friends and family, with seeing someone close that you love, being with a grandparent, as safely as you possibly can, but you don't know when they're going to move on to the next life. So you really want to not see them for the next 2 years. And 15 days to slow the spread was always a lie. Dr. Bricks wrote that in her book, that they said that, but they didn't have the data at the time to affirm their theory on it. They just they believed that data would come, but they said 15 days knowing that they would have to extend it out. Like, really crazy stuff. These experts were lying to us to our faces the whole entire time, and they knew, like, they pushed stuff like the vaccine knew it wasn't going to be as effective as they were claiming at first, and the mass stuff was insane the whole time. The back and forth, and banning people for misinformation and so on, and which they've, CDC's basically now they're like, hey, just even if you are in contact with someone who has COVID, you can live your life the same as everyone else. So it's like so just like ignore it as if now it's just like a common cold. Okay, that's where we are now, and I understand that it's out in the atmosphere now, and a lot of people have gotten over it and now have natural immunity, and people have got the shot, etc. Blah blah blah. I understand we're at a different ball game than we were at the beginning of the pandemic, but I was always someone who was like, we need to protect our most vulnerable, keep life going on as much as possible, and people will get infected, and we'll try to ride out the virus. But I'm like, if we slow the spread, aren't we prolonging the virus? That's what I kept kept thinking. And obviously that was the truth. Obviously that was the truth. And a lot of the things that we did to mitigate didn't even make any sense. But what really didn't make any sense was the nursing home policies, paying nursing homes, having extra financial incentives per bed to have people in the nursing homes. That didn't make any sense. I know people who are nurses and went to go work in the nursing homes, and people were dying at such a high rate that it was just mentally terrorizing to these people working there. That I know they had to call their husband, and where they were working was pretty far out, but they just needed them because they were so distraught over watching so many people die. We had terrible policies, and it doesn't make sense because we always knew that the elderly were the most vulnerable, and yet we intermingled them anyway. I mean, I guess it's easy to go for malicious intent on that. I don't want to go there, but I don't see a reasonable explanation why they would do something like that. But surely Whitmer should not be reelected after doing something so heinous. And Gavin Newsom, it's unfortunate that he ended up surviving his recall. At least they had one, I guess, but it was unfortunate. It's too bad Larry Elder didn't win. But Gretchen Whitmer, she cannot win. She had, again, awful policies. She used power that did not belong to her. She really stretched out a particular emergency rule. The courts ruled that she had used her power illegally in a wrong sort of way, and then she turned around and started using licensing agencies when she couldn't use her blanket authority as governor, and started using licensing agencies like, well, if businesses don't do what we want, we're going to pull their licenses. And so then it became the people who have a business versus their customers, and they had to enforce it or lose everything. It was like it was so bizarre going into a restaurant and then walking in. They're like, you got to wear a mask until you sit down, and I'm like going to be walking like 6 feet to a booth, and I'm like, are you serious? Because I had heard people on TikTok joke about that. I'm like, is this a real thing? And they're like, we just don't want to get shut down, and the terror in their eyes. And so I just put on the mask, walk 6 feet to the booth, took off my mask. Just the dumbest stuff. And no one else was in the restaurant. It was just gonna be me and the workers there and my 2 sisters who were eating with me. Just absurd stuff. But they were scared out of their minds that they were gonna get shut down, not be able to pay staff, that people could possibly lose a restaurant. And why and some people had an attitude like, oh, they just wouldn't go there anymore. I would order stuff from this restaurant because I did not want to see them. It was a local restaurant. We know like the owner there. They've been good to us when we go out. Like, I like the place. I didn't want to be one of those people like, oh, I don't go here anymore. And it put everyone in such a terrible position, and the government knew that they were putting people in terrible positions. That was the whole point. To morally blackmail everyone into compliance. And these people can't not be rewarded for it. They cannot be rewarded for it. They're going to try to make the election about so many other things. Like right now, they're really, 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 really trying to make it about abortion, which, by the way, there's some pretty heinous things attached to, for example, the Reproductive Freedom for All Act. It says stuff about not just about abortion, but also like sterilization and other things. So it makes it a right within the Constitution, which I'm like, how is something like that a right that needs to be provided for by another person? So many times I'll have a conversation about abortion and some people mention, well, it's really hard to get like your tubes tied or something because a lot of doctors don't want to do it, which there are plenty of doctors that will, but there are some that don't want to do it. I'm just like, you don't have a right to their labor. Like, I understand you really want one, and I understand and there's people who are on the right who are pro-life, like, yeah, well, this is something we need to fight for. I'm just like, if doctors don't want to do that, that's their prerogative. Like, just because you put on like a white coat or something, it doesn't mean that you're a slave all of a sudden. You're not a slave. Whether they don't want to do it because they don't want to be sued later, or because of possible, I don't know, sort of side effects or something that can go wrong, or the woman just having regret and they feel bad, whatever reason they don't want to do that, that's an elective surgery. And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Like, that's between you and the doctor. But so I'm like, how can you just say you have a right to something like that? But people are concerned, though, that there's room in this sort of legislation they're putting on the ballot for different hormone stuff like puberty blockers and other stuff like that. So if that's the case, then you got the governor who has signed it and bragged about signing it. And there's a MLive article talking about it. I'm like, that's where the narrative needs to be, that she signed this thing on for sterilization that opened the can of worms for all kinds of stuff. So, it's about to be a double-edged sword for this lady. But there's so many things we could talk about in this election. How kids are so far behind in school. They're learning development, even learning how to talk because everyone's mouths were covered, and they learn by watching your mouths. Like, I was at the grocery store one day, and this is after like people start ditching the mask, or I think, and I'm just like, it's just nice to go around and see people smile. Just something like that. And I'm a super introverted person. I don't mind being alone, but I'm just like, just seeing other people smile. Like, I've missed that. And it's just so crazy what all we've been through. All we've been through. And on top of all that, they're pushing the critical race theory. We can't forget about that. We can't forget that people have an attitude about parents being involved in their kids' school and their education, what they learn. Michigan Democrats literally put out a post that said, I don't know where they got this idea that parents get to have a say. The client is the society. I'm like, who's the society? The society of what? Who is the society? How come the parents aren't part of the society? So there's a lot to talk about during the midterms. But we can't let these people win for this sort of stuff that they did. We absolutely cannot. So please, I hope people take Joe Rogan's advice and consider voting Republican. I really do. Because otherwise, who's going to pay? Like, I know there's Republicans waiting. Fauci has retired, or he's going to retire in December. He was going to retire later, I think, originally, but I think he understands that Democrats are probably not going to hold the majority in the House, and there's going to be hearings that because Republicans are going to be in charge, and they're going to have hearings about COVID and more gain of function research, and Rand Paul's coming for blood. Not literal blood, but they're coming for blood. So he's trying to get out of Dodge, I think. And hopefully we do hold the House, but we really do need to hold the Senate. I mean, to take over the Senate. We really do need to do that. People need to be held accountable for what happened. People need to know that they went too far. Even if, no, I don't expect to be able to go to jail or anything like that. Let me just get that out the way. But people need to understand that there's electoral consequences for their actions. At the very least. People were pushing the defund the police movement hard. Biden was one of them. This was something that was pretty mainstream in 2020. They're trying to pretend like that wasn't a thing, like it wasn't as big of a thing, when the literal president right now of the United States was like entertaining it. There was this video that got pretty viral. I have it downloaded. I've showed it. I did a video of 50 reasons not to vote for Joe Biden. That's one of the reasons. He was part of the defund thing too. A lot of people, the squad was in there supporting that. It was a thing. It was a big thing with the Democrats. They have since now turned around from it, and they're in some cases are trying to pretend like Republicans are actually defund the police. And especially with people being upset with the FBI. But even before that, and I've talked about this before, but Jen Psaki claimed that Republicans were for defunding the police. And they're like, how do you square that circle? And she said because they didn't support the COVID bill, the American Rescue Plan, which was supposed to be a COVID bill, which it wasn't a COVID bill, which she acknowledged after it was passed and stuff. But first it was a COVID bill, and then they're like, no, it just encompasses a lot of things. And she's like, well, that money in that bill could go to local communities, and they could use that money for police, but the Republicans didn't support it. And they're like, that bill wasn't meant for that, though. So it's like a catch-all. So it's like Republicans are against education because they didn't vote for the American Rescue Plan. It's like just a catch-all for whatever they could use the money for. So of course that's blatantly dishonest. Joe Rogan also talked about how Jen Psaki was just a propaganda machine, but I don't have that clip teed up. But he also talked about how she was just a propaganda mouthpiece and not very great at her job, especially compared to McEnany. I think that's how you say her last name. Yeah, he said she was a beast. But they know it was bad because polling and people started to get shut down at different races. People need to understand that the COVID policies, they went too far. And if they ever do something like this, they will be severely punished. So at the very least, people need to pay for this. They do. So we need to work hard in the elections for a lot of reasons. Also want to note, I saw this poll today, this Arizona poll. This is kind of puzzling to me because it has Mark Kelly at 50% in this poll, which is a +7. I think at this point, that's pretty high, not impossible to make up. But what's interesting is that Carrie Lake is at +2. So I don't understand the dynamics of this. So I was reading the comments and people are like, this is like, no way. They think that it's probably more like Mark Kelly's +4 or something. yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me that people would be like +2 for Carrie Lake, but Blake Masters would be so far behind on there. Now, I thought there's some interesting commentary that people have had surrounding Mark Kelly, because Arizona, it's kind of purple now, but it's still reddish, I guess. And Cinema likes to be on the edge and vote for something. There's some pretty like radical stuff that they had as far as like content when she was running for the seat, but since she's had it, she's tried to um be a more, she's still voting with the Democrats for sure, but she's tried to hold out and be a more reasonable voice of reason on some things. But she did cave in on the last big bill that they passed, which is basically their new Green Deal thing. They said it was like fighting inflation, but it wasn't really fighting inflation. And there's like green stuff in it and just crazy stuff. So it was an agenda that they wanted for Build Back Better, but they basically repackaged it and got it passed or whatever. So she was against it before, and Manchin was against it before. Apparently, Bill Gates like called Manchin and encouraged him to try it again, I guess. So Bill Gates had a hand in that. FYI, folks out there, if you want your spidey sense to start tingling, just want to throw it out there in the atmosphere. So Cinema, she ended up, joining the pack, and people were like, maybe it was Blake who pointed this out, but he's like, isn't it interesting that it was never a question how Kelly was going to vote? It was always obvious that he was going to vote for this bad bill. Like Cinema, she was on the fence, like, is she going to do it? Is she not going to do it? And they reasoned with her and got her to do it once they sweetened the pot enough for her. But Kelly was always going to vote in line with the rest of the Democrats. So if they're going to have something radical on the ballot, Kelly, you can bank on him just towing the line with the rest of the pack. And when you don't have, let's say they get a majority, and it's not just like 50-50 with Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker. Once you have, Manchin and Cinema can feel more empowered to go against the grain sometimes. When they know it's a good chance that it's not gonna pass anyway, if they had like enough votes just period to get something passed without like the Republicans or without the tiebreaker or whatever, they're gonna probably vote more solid D and not have like these will they won't they kind of back and forths, because they won't have that Republican cover. So things will just really get worse for everyone if Republicans do not take the Senate. It'll be bad for everyone. And there's some pretty radical things still to go that Democrats will push. If they can push to expand the pack the courts and other things, that seemed like the route that they will want to go, but there's other radical things that they could push through first, like the Quality Act is a radical bill. Again, I already talked about, the different voting rights legislations that they wanted to push through. By the way, speaking of voting rights, Fetterman from who's going up against Oz has said that he's against voter ID because it's racist, I guess. Fetterman opposes voter ID laws because people of color are less likely to have ID, and Fox News and other people are reporting this. Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, a Democrat, opposes voter identification laws because poor people and people of color are less likely to have their ID at any one given time. Despite their prevalence worldwide, Fetterman, who is running for the open Keystone State Senate seat against Republican Dr. Mehmet Oz, has been an outspoken opponent of voter ID laws in America. Falling in line with the progressive orthodoxy, Fetterman has decried voter ID laws as insidious and unnecessary during his tenure as the Keystone State's lieutenant governor. In fact, Fetterman went as far as to claim the laws, which are the standard in most countries worldwide, suppressed the vote, and said he was horrified by Republicans' push for the measures in Pennsylvania and nationwide. Fetterman also said that poorer Americans and people of color are less likely to have their ID on them at any given moment, such as when voting for an elected official. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I am a Black person. I am. It's true. And when I go vote, I do have my ID. I know that I need it. And I carry it with me. I mean, you can accidentally leave it at home. That's a thing that happens. You can misplace it. Wallet can get stolen. Things happen. But I normally have my ID, especially in driving around. Want to make sure if I get pulled over, I have everything straightened out. So, so I do normally have my ID on me. It's the thing that most people who have ID, they mainly have ID on them. But sometimes white people forget their ID. I was at a convention this past weekend, and I was going by a table to get credentials, which I didn't need to be in that line, which I ended up figuring out like a couple minutes while in the line and text someone, and I had to go to a different spot. But my line that I was originally in was right next to the help desk line, and someone was like, "Oh, I got to go to the help desk line because I don't." They had forgotten their ID, and someone else had also, I had heard, had to leave and come back because they had left their ID. So it is possible to leave your ID and not have it always with you at any given moment. But that's not an exclusive thing for Black people, okay? So it doesn't really need to be a racial thing. There have been polls that there's your minorities are, I guess, less likely to have IDs, but a high majority of people have IDs, a high percentage, and Black people also want people to show identification. If it's possible for someone to have some kind of fake vote out there, that disenfranchises everyone, Republican, Democrat, etc. It should not be a partisan issue for people to show identification when they vote. That's hogwash. People need to show up when they go buy beer, when they get cough medicine, and all sorts of things, when you get your benefits. You need ID. You need ID for different things online. When you register for stuff, you need ID. You need ID when you go to the bank. You just need ID. It's just a part of life. And if you are an adult, a functioning adult, I don't know how you are a functioning adult if you don't have ID. And I don't mean like it expired and the Secretary of State office was closed because morons during the pandemic or something, and you just so happen to not have it. I mean like you're just going through life purposely not having an ID. That is weird. And I don't know what reason you got, but you better take care of that if you want to vote. And if you don't, maybe you shouldn't be voting. If you're just not that much of a functional adult to not have your stuff together. And Fetterman said, in my own state, they're going to attempt to pass a constitutional amendment making sure that universal voting ID for every time you vote, not just when you sign up to vote, but every time you vote, Fetterman said in December 2021. So you should identify yourself because they understand that at any given time, there are tens of thousands of Pennsylvanians who are typically on the poorer side and are people of color that are less likely to have their ID at any given one time, the Democrat nominee continued. According to a 2015 study by the Project Vote, 87% of Black voters reported having a government ID, while 13% said they did not. 90% of Hispanic voters reported having government IDs, while 10% did not. 95% of white American voters reported having IDs, while 5% did not. So there's people out there who don't have IDs for sure, but you should have an ID to vote, period. It's not that hard to get one. And by the way, there's states where there's not a cost, or if it's related to you needing one to vote, that there isn't a cost. And if there are states where you have to, why not help people get IDs? That's what's so puzzling. If it's such a problem, why aren't Democrats helping people acquire the IDs? That's what's really so bonkers about it. Voter ID laws are popular among the vast majority of Americans, It's a supermajority actually, as well as a supermajority of black voters and non-white voters. The measures are used in 46 out of 47 European nations, and the United Kingdom, though former Prime Minister Boris Johnson supported them, according to 2021 Crime Prevention Research Center study. Other national Democrats have been outspoken against voter ID, such as Vice President Kamala Harris, because she's a moron, who claimed rural Americans had difficulty photocopying their IDs to vote. Georgia Democrat gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams flipped on the subject of voter ID laws last year, and Peach State Senator Raphael Warnock joined her. Voter ID became a subject of an intense national debate that Democrats ended up losing out on as they attempted to jam through on voting rights overhaul through Congress. The change in tone coming from Democrats could be due to the American public's positive sentiment towards the policies the Blue Party decried as racist. Fetterman's campaign did not respond to Fox News' digital request for comment. Fox News did report it as well. A couple people did report the story, but I just read it from a New York Post article. And yeah, the Democrat Stacey Abrams basically championed, the All-Star game being moved out of Georgia, which when there's a big game like that, it brings a lot of revenue to the state, especially because different businesses will do different deals. They'll have people will have parties. You'll have people catering and all sorts of different things. There's just a lot of and people who travel and hotel, the hospitality industry, which has been devastated, because of COVID and stuff. It's just decided to sabotage all that for your narrative that was stupid. That's not true. That's really insulting. So people started to change their tune, certainly, once they realized that they had done something so detrimental. And if people do not pay for their insidious talking points, it will be a shame. Stacey Abrams should lose. Stacey Abrams will lose. Should lose. I really want Warnock to lose. I don't think Herschel Walker is the best candidate that could have been selected, but again, it is what it is, and I really don't want Warnock to win. I wonder what the polling is. I know he was head last I look. The Hill reports Walker holds razor-thin lead on Warnock in latest Georgia Senate race poll. Well, well, we know that they shouldn't. There's a lot of business that's going to Georgia, especially as they have like tax breaks and stuff for like the movie industry, and there's also sorts of different job opportunities and so on. It's been getting bluer as people have been really moving there, and it's become like a sort of business mecca haven for folks, and a lot of times Republicans will have some kind of big majority, and then they'll just really take it for granted. They will. And I mean, you guys know that, remember sort of the disheartened feelings that people had after the 2020 election. They had the runoffs, and there are people who were, I mean, I knew people were canvassing the area, and a lot of people just really didn't feel it was worth it to vote because they felt like the election was stolen. There are people who didn't like Kemp and all sorts of drama between him and Trump, and it was just a mess, and it has resulted in some bad policies being rammed through, pushed through, and also bad people being confirmed as well. And a lot of this also was about the $2,000 check they were bribing voters with. Like, if you vote for Warnock and Ossoff and stuff, you're going to get $2,000. And it still bothers me to this day. Not that I think people really needed it so bad, that the actual $2,000, but it bothers me that they lied about the $2,000, because they were like, vote and you're going to get $2,000. You guys remember that? They did not give you $2,000. And they're like, well, this is just, because I think there was already $600, right? And then they gave everybody 14. And they're like, oh, well, this is just like, that was a down payment, the 600, and now the 1400, it just finishes up that 2000. And I'm like, a whole nother man made that promise with the $600. That was a whole nother president. That was a whole nother man. How is it possible that was a down payment on what you guys were saying on the campaign trail after Trump was defeated in the election? That doesn't make any sense. And it didn't make any sense. And I don't understand, because they passed so much money, and it was unnecessary to pass the American Rescue Plan, but they passed it and it was a lot of money. They pushed it through, etc. With like no Republican support. So why was it that they just couldn't round up the number to $2,000? I want to talk to a senator or somebody to figure that out, because it doesn't make sense. And yes, there'll be a lot of more money to spend to give toward to more Americans. I get that, but they spent so much money, so I don't understand why was it worth gypping all those Americans out on the like $600. If someone can explain it to me in the comments, let me know. But they just passed money everywhere, and they just felt like where they were going to be dishonest and gyp them. They were going to gyp the American people on $600. Like, if I was Herschel, I'd remind people like, hey, I'd have ads, I'd have billboards like, hey, Warnock still owe you $600, bruh. And I put bra in there, like, bro, Warnock's still owe you $600. Just have like black people on billboards with their pockets and be like, where's my $600? It doesn't make sense to me. No, that's not like the main reason why I don't think he should be reelected, Warnock, but that's a big reason why people voted for him, because they wanted to sell your vote for $2,000. It's just pretty crazy, considering all the damage that people have just done over the past couple of years. But that is interesting. So Herschel Walker holds a thin 2-point lead in his race against incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock for a seat in the upper chamber, according to the poll released Tuesday. And this is The Hill reporting it. It's the Emerson College poll. So he's at 46% compared to Warnock's 44%. Very likely, for people saying they're very likely voting in the general election. That's interesting. I didn't know he had gotten that lead. I hope Herschel can pull it out, because again, I don't think he's the strongest candidate. I think he's a good-hearted dude. I just don't think he's the best person, I guess, to articulate the conservative, not even conservative, just Republican message. But Warnock is obviously not good for the country, and he's signed on to some pretty radical things. And you guys probably know I'm so annoyed with his "I'm a pro-choice pastor" statements. But that's comforting, I guess. They probably feel like they can take Georgia. I don't think it's impossible for them to take Pennsylvania. It was looking bad with the 11 points. My gut instinct with this Arizona poll, like I said, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me, that Carrie Lake would be up 2 and Kelly would be up 7. So I would think that it's got to be closer for Blake Masters, and hopefully he does pull it out. There's got to be some people really canvassing in Maricopa County, man, doing your due diligence. And listen to me, if you live in that area, there's a lot of people who are gung-ho about election fraud, but listen to me. It's really close regardless of whatever you think. And whatever you think happened in 20... I don't know how close it is in this particular election. In 2020, people knew how close it was. I have someone I know who lives down in Arizona, and they decided they would volunteer for the election, and they, went to go work for the Trump, team and so on. And they let them know, like, if we lose this district, we're going to lose. So they knew it was like down to like a district that was like the difference of life and death. So they knew it was close. So regardless of how you feel about the outcome of the election, whether you feel everything was legitimate, fair, or whatever, you can say, well, that makes it so easier to rig. Whatever. The people, regardless, know that it's close. So if you want to make a difference, knock doors, get lit, talk to neighbors, talk to friends, talk to your church members, and really try to convince people to go out and do the right thing. And get your talking points together, have some good talking points that are good on a national level, and things that really impact you guys locally. And go and talk to people. Things that can be some middle ground kind of stuff, not don't argue with folks day and night about the FBI raiding Trump if you're talking to someone who hates his guts and thinks he should be arrested for reasons they can't even say. Leave that conversation to another day. Talk about school choice and people, the entitlement that the Democrats have to the children and CRT and show examples of people trying to break out. Now, Arizona is further along in their kind of system as far as like funding students instead of systems. So if that's the way that they want to keep things, they got to keep pressing on that. And if that's worked good for Arizona, why would you want someone who's like for big bloated government and no choices for citizens with Mark Kelly? So just find a way to really make politics personal. So many people were so wrapped up in Trump train, still is wrapped up in Trump train, and I like Trump fine. And so, but a lot of politics, people need to feel it like in their hearts and their souls. They go to the grocery stores and the prices are high. That hits people. You can talk about this big bill that they spent that's going to cause more inflation, and then they had the audacity to say it was reduced inflation in the name, but now we're just admitting that it's something, for green stuff. They're going to take your money that they're just printing, but it is your money. You're going deeper in debt. It's increasing inflation, and they're just going to pay subsidies to their friends for green energy policies and ultimately try to raise your taxes with stuff. And if you mess up like carrying the one, then you're going to get audited by one of the new IRS agents that they hired. Just find a way to make it personal to people so they can begin to consider their family, consider their friends, but to consider their kids, what's going on with their kids. A lot of women really will pull how that family votes. So make it personal to people. Make it really personal to people and show them sort of the real world consequences of what's going on. People want these elections to be about abortions, and that's very personal to a lot of people. It's very personal to me. I'm very passionate about that issue, but there's so many other things going around with this issue. Like people, when I argue with people all the time about pro-choice, pro-life, the thing that pro-choice people say is, it's pretty heinous that they say this, but they're like, you care more about these unalive people, or these people who aren't actually real people talking about fetuses, instead of paying attention to people who are actually alive and living beings. And they'll say that because you don't support universal child care or paying for everyone's free college and maternity leave or whatever. And some Republicans do, but I just don't think the government getting involved is. I did a video the other day. I said the government doesn't really want to solve your problems. If they can solve problems, then they'll just create problems for them to solve, but just to get you more on the government teat. So they aren't really looking to solve your problems. They're looking for prostitutes. I said, someone who's willing to prostitute their vote, and they're looking for addicts, people to get hooked onto their stuff, who will come back and need more. That's what they want when they want to give out goodies. So they're not doing something out of the kindness of their heart. So I don't think it's a good thing for the government to try to solve these problems. I think it's good that people go out and they're charitable. I think it makes sense for businesses to try to do good maternity leave programs and help with people childcare and all that kind of stuff. If they want to attract really good talent, that's not a reality that everybody can do, because some businesses just can't afford it. But it's all part of like the process of you getting a job and negotiating your contracts and so on, and looking at the benefits and saying, this is a place that I want to work at. But that's something that individuals need to take care of. But they'll say that because you don't support government top down sort of intervention, that you don't care about people. But here's the thing: are these people who are so gung ho about abortion, which is killing babies, do they care about that more than children being behind in schools? Do they care about that more than children being behind on their development? Do they care about that more than their kids being indoctrinated with critical race theory that teaches that black people are oppressed and white people are oppressors? And yes, it does. Yes, it does. It just does. Okay. That's what it teaches. Is that more which is more important? Which is more important? You killing your future offspring, or your offspring being screwed right now? Which is more important? Which is more important? You let me know. So they could try to make this about abortion. In Michigan, there's ads, so many ads about Tudor Dixon and abortion. There's other things going on in this race, and even so, I mean, it's plastered everywhere, nonstop. And then those are the only ads. That's the only thing they're hitting her on. I know what else they got. That's what they're hitting her on so hard. And it's a 4-point difference. And I was just talking to somebody not too long ago when I was driving over here to kind of talk strategy about election. And I mentioned the poll. I'm like, it's only like 4 points. And they're like, I'm a little surprised it was only 4 points. Honestly, I was a little surprised too, because I know they haven't really jumped in their stride, I guess, with the election. And it's just really now a face matched up against Whitmer. That's basically what it is. They haven't had the chance to go toe to toe with, So we're just 4 points. They're already slamming Tudor, and Whitmer's got $14 million. We'll see how she decides to start spending that. I'm assuming she's not going to pay for people's college. She's gonna, fire some bullets, take all the airtime, But it's very possible to win this thing. There's people who are not okay with the direction of the country. There's people, I've heard grumblings from Democrats in Detroit. So they're probably going to have low turnout as well, because they're not enthused. And I don't think they're going to get so many people enthused enough to go up and vote for abortion to save the race. So Republicans need to be very diligent, and it is very possible to win. It is very possible to win, but we cannot be arrogant. We cannot slack off, and we cannot take anything for granted. And I was going to say we need to be unified, but we just need to be unified enough to work together toward the same end game. There's a lot of cattiness right now, especially in my local politics. But man, we can win, and that the most important thing is that we win. Period. That's the most important thing. So anyway, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different articles that I have. Like I did write one about Gretchen Whitmer and her disparity and her hypocrisy with some of her racial issues. So go ahead and or where she did just like, oh, I want to care about this and not about that. So go ahead and check out my website, blacktnews.com. And if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. I appreciate anything you guys can do, whether it's like $10, $20, $50. I really, really do appreciate it. It costs to stream, it costs for software, it costs to travel, it costs just to do everything. You guys know that there are costs in life, and I do understand that Biden inflation has got life hitting people pretty hard these days. But if you can support, I do appreciate that. I really do. But please make sure that you're at least commenting, liking, subscribing, telling people to watch Black Team, that you're dropping your email on the website so you can stay informed and up to date. Social media giants, you can't trust them. So we want to make sure that we can find each other in the very least. So make sure that you guys are dropping your emails, and check out different merchandise that we have, like the Be Better Not Bitter stuff. Love that t-shirt. Got Carver, Douglas, and Harriet Tubman on there. Also got the My Money, My Business shirt. People tell you to mind your business. I'm like, bro, you're talking about my money, my tax dollars. So it's pretty much my business. So that's why I made that shirt, and got the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. That is a quote from Frederick Douglass, because people try to trash it. And it's like, no, there's people who always thought it was a great document, including people who were more pro-black than you are. So go ahead and check out the different merch. God bless you guys.